Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of February 26, 2016, and I am in a room full of Pokemon experts and Pokemon. There are plushies all over the place. If you're watching the video version, if not, check Twitter, there'll be photos. So this is an important show because a new Pokemon game was announced. It's the 20th anniversary. Joining me to talk about this, let's kick things off, Callie Plaguey.
Hello.
Armando
What's up,
Torres
guys?
making his debut on MVC, and also her debut on MVC, Miranda
nice.
Sanchez.
Hello.
I did not know that.
No, this is a full house. And so I guess to start things off, before we talk about Sun and Moon, because there's plenty to talk about, even though there's only like 5 seconds of anything to talk about.
There's a lot, but also not a lot.
Yeah, a lot, but not a lot. Let's start with your first Pokemon experience. I'm going to have Callie kick this off.
I kind of started out of order. My neighbor gave me a bunch of Pokemon cards. I think it was like a Bellsprout and an Oddish, like his reject cards, basically. Aww. And then after that, my mom got me into the Pokemon anime, and we started watching it religiously, and my mom would watch it even if I wasn't around. And then I got into the games after that, and I got really into the games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, very cool. My parents were not down with the anime.
Yeah, no,
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I started with the cards, so I like bought a Pokemon themed card binder, and I got really into collecting the cards, and I still have I have a first edition holographic Machamp still.
Nice.
And my holographic Charizard and stuff like that.
What was your first game? Sorry, in case you did or didn't say that.
So this is interesting. So I'm like a huge Pokemon fan, but I actually didn't play the games until Crystal because I refused to play until I could play as a girl.
Okay.
And then after that, I played as a girl through Crystal, and then I retroactively went back through. I bought Red, Blue, and Yellow. Played through Special Pikachu Edition. The most because that was my favorite, and then I continued on and replayed Crystal. But as an 8-year-old kid, I was like super not down with having to play as a boy.
Okay. Wow. Put a foot down.
Very cool.
All right, Armando, first Pokemon experience.
My first Pokemon experience. I'd seen my brother play his version of Pokemon Red, over his shoulder. He's my older brother, so I was just, a little annoying brother watching over as he played the game. This was around 98, around the time it released in North America, and it wasn't until 99, I believe, that Pokemon Yellow came out. My parents got it for me with my Game Boy Color, and it was my first exposure to not only Pokemon, or my own, Pokemon journey, but also my first RPG. So that was really important to me, and the second I started the game, it was just like, oh wow, this is like my adventure. These are my Pokemon that I'm catching, my Pokemon I'm trading with, my Pokemon that I'm battling with, and yeah, it all stemmed from there. I was just a little 7-year-old boy, and here I am now, 17 years later.
With an Ash Ketchum hat for folks who are watching the video, just make sure you know.
That's real good.
All right, Miranda, first Pokemon experience.
Also with the games, I started Pokemon Yellow when I was a super little kid, had my little Game Boy Color. My parents got me and my sister Pokemon, and we played a bunch. And I remember getting stuck on Snorlax and being really frustrated as a little kid. I didn't know what was happening. I was just like, well, I got Pikachu, so it's okay.
Okay.
And then after that, of course, I got into the show, which I watched religiously. And I got my first Pikachu plush when I was like 7. And since then, I've had
the collection has grown quite a bit.
Since then, you have
I've had a million. Yeah, I still have that plush though. It's my favorite, and it's in really good condition.
Oh, great. Okay. Awesome. So my first Pokemon experience, I guess I'm the old guy at the table today because I think I was either 18 or 19 years old, and this is like 1998, and in the video game magazines, all you kept hearing about, either in sidebars or sometimes in bigger articles, is this big phenomenon in Japan happened called Pokemon. And it was a Nintendo game, and you can play it on the Game Boy. And you got to remember, too, in 1998, the Game Boy was long in the tooth. Like, we're not talking about, like... there had been other permutations of it, clearly, or Nintendo had, like, slimmed it down, I think, by that point. I got to do my research there. But I couldn't help but be like, well... so many folks in Japan got like captured by this thing. Is that going to happen to me? Like, am I going to get as interested as well?
Got captured.
Yeah, pretty much. Is this going to get me as well as it did those folks? And so I remember going to there's this small mom and pop store in the Bronx called Game Express at the time. I don't think it's still there, but it's on Fordham Road, if you know the South Bronx. And I bought a Game Boy Color. And I was like, well, what am I going to play on this? And of course, Link's Awakening ZX is the game of choice. But then I'm like, Pokemon is out. I'm like, but is this game for kids? And I said, whatever. I bought it. And it immediately struck me why this series hit with so many people the way that it did. You know, the collection aspect. I didn't really get into battling. I guess I just wasn't. I didn't know enough people who had it too, so it was a little weird for me to just have Pokemon in 1998 and not have a ton of folks who I knew were playing it. But at the same time, and I didn't fall for the anime. Sorry, like I watched the first episode. I was like, "That's nice. I'm done with that."
You're not alone.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it didn't work on me. But I stayed with the series regardless because I saw this very cool sort of idea on collecting these monsters and trading them with people, and I can appreciate what the battle system was there for. All right, so. Now that we've kind of established all like our first Pokemon experience, I'd like for you guys to talk about now. I mean, this morning a big deal happened, right? Like Sun and Moon, it's here. What was your reaction to the trailer and to the way Pokemon Company decided to unveil it? Because some folks like to assume, oh, this is Nintendo and Pokemon Company. Newsflash, Nintendo does not own or tell Pokemon Company what to do. They work in collaboration. In fact, they're a separate entity. Nintendo kind of says, all right, here's what we think, and they come to an agreement. It's not one versus the other. It's they work together. But this morning's announcement was an interesting way to do it. And it was kind of deflated by the Sun and Moon leak the day before.
Totally.
Right, and even if it hadn't leaked, I don't know if a live event was necessary for because there wasn't a lot of detail, right? We didn't get a whole lot. It was more of this sizzle reel of like why Pokemon's great. And of course I appreciate that as a lifelong Pokemon fan. But I mean the leak definitely took away from the impact, but also I just thought, you know, this maybe wasn't the they blew it up as like, this is our Pokemon Direct, this is our big event.
Yeah, I expected some really big announcements, maybe just not one game, but maybe multiple games.
Yeah, for the 20th anniversary, I expected it to be this monumental
like maybe
live event.
Detective Pikachu or something coming into the West.
Yeah,
like that would have
like
been big.
Even Pokemon Go information or
absolutely no Pokemon Go
previews of, I mean, they have that one wireframe bird-looking Pokemon in that trailer, but other than that, like I was expecting something about what might change in this new generation of games, and we didn't get any of that. Of course, it is early, but still.
Yeah, and granted that we did get to know that it's coming out this year, like this holiday season, which is really nice. Yeah. But also, it's just like, if you're gonna come out this year, just show us just a little bit more. Yeah. And of course, there are a lot of events for them to show stuff off. We have, you know, E3 and TGS and all this other stuff if they show anything at TGS. But yeah. It's just a little bit of a letdown that they made it. It seemed like a big deal. But, I mean, it is a big deal to announce a new game, but when you don't show anything with it, it's hard to be excited for that.
Yeah, and it almost feels like the leak caught them off guard. Like, they had, you know, let's assume this video was done this week, if not the week before. Right. They've been sitting on this announcement, clearly, but the fact that they were willing to walk into this announcement thinking, okay, if the title leaks, all we're doing in this video, forget if the title leaks, all we're doing with this video is confirming that the next generation of Pokemon is happening. And that's an exciting thing. Let's not undervalue that, right? Like, we're all excited about that. We're all happy about that. But I do think that the minute, you know, this patent leak was brought to the surface, since that was the only thing you were really bringing to the table outside of, okay, Pokemon Bank will work with the virtual console games, we're going to get to that, it did, like, just sucker punch the whole thing.
Oh, totally.
And it was like, hey, you really did wish that they were going to... There's a lot of excitement for what it's going to look like, because I can't help but wonder, what is this thing going to look like? Like, the minute they open the 3DS, they do this clever thing where they're like, oh, fade out, we're done. You can't see. No more. No mas. Pikachu. Like, you know what I mean? And so to me, it was like, it's an exciting announcement that doesn't really have substance to it yet, you know?
Yeah.
And you could tell yesterday when the images did leak, or when the patent trademark
showed up.
There was complete radio silence from the Pokemon Company's official Twitter, and I could only speculate how, like, they're handling the situation.
Yeah, like, it probably wasn't a lot of time to redo anything. They were just like, and put this in multiple languages in one day, like, impossible. You know, to be fair to them. Okay, so then let's talk about the clips that they did show. So obviously, you know, you saw Ishihara, you saw Masuda, you saw folks working on this next game. What do we catch from it? What do we see? What did I Spies?
Well, I don't know if it's you know, something that's still up for question, but I'm pretty sure next gen is confirmed. People are speculating that this is going to be, you know, a sequel to either X and Y or Oris, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. But not only did a UK press site confirm that this is a new generation of Pokemon, in the montage for the highlight reel, they pointed out the release date for every core Pokemon game, not the remakes or anything. So they, you know, Gold, Ruby, Sapphire.
The most recent release was absent. No, it makes total sense.
So all that just points to this is totally a new
Yeah.
generation.
What gen are we on? 8?
This will be
This will be
7.
7.
Yeah, Gen 7.
Yeah, the other thing that indicates that to me is I don't know. We're getting to Pokemon Bank, but the way Pokemon Bank will work indicates that Sun and Moon are kind of separate from how X and Y work with Pokemon Bank. So yeah, we'll get to that, but it does indicate a new generation. So yeah.
They didn't really mention that the Pokemon from the Virtual Console ports of Red, Blue, Yellow will be able to transfer Pokemon to X and Y or
yeah, they have
Omega Ruby
Pokemon
Alpha
Bank
Sapphire.
information, but we'll get there. The other thing I noticed is the wireframe bird Pokemon, which looked sort of like Mandibuzz, and then I checked and it wasn't. So new Pokemon indicates a new generation as well.
Totally, yeah. My initial thought was that that was like Fletchling, a prototype of like Fletchling, but it looks totally different.
We also have a lot of legendaries that need their own story.
Yeah.
So, they have their time to shine, but how they work with Sun and Moon themes is a little weird. We have Pokemon from the moon, so,
Yeah, and there wasn't a single shot of a moon in anything that they showed. I was just there like, okay, where's the moon? What moon? There's a moon, right?
Yeah. I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit more futuristic, maybe.
Yeah.
Because we don't see Pokemon just kind of seems to happen within this bubble of time, and like technology isn't really far forward in any of them or anything.
It's ultra contemporary in a lot of ways. Yes.
And we saw some art of vehicles, and I was just a little bummed because like here's a normal truck.
Yeah.
It's carrying some Pokemon.
But it's got a Machamp in there.
Yeah, but then here's a Blastoise and a firefighter truck. It's
that was weird. Interesting to me because like in the anime Pokemon have jobs like and even in the games like in Ruby and Sapphire like a Machamp helps you move in so it was interesting. I'm like, okay, are the trucks part of like how Pokemon help? Are they factoring? It was just weird because
are you gonna be able to drive?
Like, am I gonna be a 10-year-old who can drive, or am I gonna be like a 16-year-old who can drive? I don't know. That was interesting. The Sun and Moon thing is still pretty unclear. I wonder if it has to do with Zygarde and different Zygarde cores. Because I don't think it would be Lunatone and Solrock. That doesn't really make sense.
They wouldn't warrant their
they wouldn't warrant their own
they do
games.
show up in that sizzle reel. I know everyone who was watching caught that. I was like,
Totally.
there it is.
Yeah.
The sun and the moon.
Yeah.
Where's it going to go from here?
Oh, right,
Yeah.
the double battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other options would be like Umbreon and Espeon are like day-night Pokemon. Again, like it doesn't make sense.
It's not a
strong basis for a separate game, whereas Zygarde would be more likely since Zygarde kind of needs its own.
See, but I wonder if the Zygarde ship sailed just because they didn't do Pokemon Z. That was something folks were expecting, and then that just didn't happen, right? So it makes you wonder if, Zygarde will probably be worked in, but if maybe the focus is, the focus in each gen, right, is always on this new type, in most cases, with the exception of Black and White, where that was a clear sequel to a previous game. So it'll be really interesting to see how they sort of tackle this thing. I'm also just really excited to see it because X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire both look great, but they also, the engine, you can tell it was barely holding together in some cases, right? Like you'd have like a swarm of Pokemon show up and you'd just be there like, you'd see like the creaking and the frame rate take a hit, and you'd be like, oh man. And you also already saw from the logo that it's going to be mostly 2D with some areas you'll play in 3D. So once again, you're going to have, some folks are really disappointed by that. Like they want to play a 3D Pokemon game all the time. To those folks, my answer has always been too, like, hey, you should calm that down because this thing is always connected to the internet if you connect via Wi-Fi, and you want to turn on 3D, like your 3DS is going to last you an hour.
Totally.
Yeah,
like that's not
true.
Yeah, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Like they have to consider this is an on-the-go game as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Definitely have to factor in the technical limitations. Like even though we can dream big about a full 3D Pokemon world, there is a lot going on behind the scenes with like the global trade system and Wonder Trading and the PSS, especially in the last generation. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to wrap our thoughts on, sort of where Sun and Moon are, we don't really know what to think yet because we haven't seen it. And I think it'll be really exciting to see it. And if you're listening, like Pokemon Company, make that reveal like worth it because
real soon.
Yeah. Well, or in a month or two, like clearly, probably before E3, you could imagine they're going to show it to us. Let's just take that bet. But I'm really interested to see how this thing's going to look because look how Black and White turned out, where they did turn that style and went really far with what they can do in 2D.
Exactly.
And I'm expecting that with 3D in this case.
Totally.
Yeah. Are we all on board with that?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, there is that concept art of the building with like the water Pokemon outside of it, and it looks like the way like Lumio City looked in 3D.
That's right.
In X and Y. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with that and what's new.
All I want is some space action. I know we had some delving into space in the Delta episode of Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And so having a Pokemon series that takes place in space would be amazing.
Oh my god!
I like this. All right.
Go to the Clefairy homeland.
Also, I feel like it would open up like the creativity to make like super like weird alien type Pokemon or something. Maybe they'll make a new type, alien type.
Alien type.
Oh man.
Space type.
Space type.
One more type.
Anti-gravity type.
Can we do one more type? I guess we have to.
I'd
buckle
welcome
up
it.
for that.
I would welcome as much balancing as possible.
Yeah, Fairy is a little bit OP, not too OP, but there's not a lot of good poison types to balance Fairy, so it would be interesting introducing a new type and seeing how the metagame shifts and how type matchups shift.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then let's start talking about just sort of Pokemon's 20th anniversary. I mean, the table's full of plushies. We got an Ask Ketchum hat in the room. I've got Pokemon Green like right here because it's out in Japan. And I guess my question to everyone here is, how has Pokemon endured 20 years? Like, what has been... What do you think are the reasons that this thing continues to sort of still be so dominant as a franchise?
So I know a lot of people dislike the new generations. Every time they're like, oh, it keeps getting weaker and weaker. But that's part that keeps it alive. Because like this is a new generation. A new generation means this, a new kid's generation. Like that's their generation. That's who they grew up with, you know? And I think that's a big part of it. And like you see that with Doctor Who sometimes too, is like you keep getting new doctors and it's like, well, this is my doctor. I started with Matt Smith, so he's my doctor.
Me too.
David Tennant's
My personal
fine,
doctor.
That's kind of like how it goes, right? Yeah. Like you have like almost this ownership over this generation, and it just feels more personal to you. And of course, they always make great collectibles. So
Okay.
Yeah, like going off of that, I have a friend who tutors in Japan. She was telling me she tutors this kid whose first Pokemon game was Diamond. Yeah. And I was blown away. It's like, there are people alive who are that new to Pokemon, but I love that because the cool thing about Pokemon is its accessibility while remaining a deep game. So I think its strength is scaling difficulty and scaling investment. So a kid can play Pokemon and really enjoy the collection aspect, or just beating the Elite Four, the journey aspect.
Exploring
a new region and getting to know new Pokemon. Whereas kids do this too, but someone who is really familiar with Pokemon can dive really deeply into the metagame and really learn how behind the scenes stats work, and stats you don't even see that you have to like kind of do weird math to figure out, and you can really scale that up, and the Pokemon competitive game just keeps getting larger, and people get really into intense strategy for what works and how to be the very best at battling and raising Pokemon and breeding Pokemon. So I think that's one of its strengths, is it endures because it scales back for anybody's what they want out of the game. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, like, on the surface, Pokemon is just like, a game where you explore, collect, battle with your friends, trade. But again, like, it's so deep of a game. Like, there's IVs, EVs, items, natures, abilities, movesets, type advantages. Like, these are all things that, like, just, I don't know. It's amazing, like, how deep the game is, like, under the surface.
Yeah, and people keep discovering new things. Like in 2014, the world champion won with a Pachirisu.
That was a huge deal.
Which was a huge deal because that metagame is extremely narrow. There's not a lot of flexibility, and it's really cool to see people being like, well, I need this for my team, and this Pokemon that nobody thought of can do that for me. And bringing that Pokemon in and being really creative with that. Like it keeps. I was gonna say it keeps evolving.
Well, I mean, you're not going for the intentional pun, so I think it's all right. But I do think, it is a series that, despite kind of sticking to a very strict formula, and we're going to talk a little bit about maybe some places we'd love to see that formula change.
Totally.
But it does adhere to a very strict formula, a very specific type of journey. But at the same time, each installment still manages to kind of capture kids in entertainment and investment, and really like sort of have them thinking like, who am I going to start with? Like that's you from that first choice. And then moving forward, well, what Pokemon do I want to catch? And sometimes like even looking into that, right? Like people look at the box and make a decision. Oh man, that one looks cool. I want this.
This is what I'm starting
with.
This
is what I'm going for. But then you look at the deep metagame and whatnot. But let's step outside of even the games for a second. You know, like in terms of the entertainment product, in terms of like the anime and how they approach like telling their stories, very kid friendly approach. Look at the championship and how it gets all of these people excited for multiple forms of this game. I mean, there's the card game kids who come in who just like, that's the fastest shuffling I've ever seen outside of Vegas. Like, I can't believe it. But they're able to, you're able to keep up, and folks will tune in and watch and be like really excited by it. I mean, they've had movies. They've done like so many things. It's one of the few brands that it's multimedia. Like it's everywhere, and it's on everything, and it's been doing it since the late 90s.
Yeah, it's on snacks. It's on like
that's right.
dishware.
Yeah.
Like in Japan, they always have like lottery prizes, and a lot of the lottery prizes are like hand towels.
I've got one of those and some socks.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm wearing them right now.
Some socks.
Sweet.
Yeah, I also like
having.
I think they're really smart about exclusive or like special edition merchandise that Miranda and I are both really crazy about.
Yeah, they're always such high quality. I'm so jealous because Japan always has like the really cool collectibles. We import a lot.
We import a lot.
Yeah, so the Pokemon centers often will have like monthly releases of different products or different lines. Like there was a recent one where it was like Pokemon Market, I think
Pokemon
it was.
Market,
It was super cute, and it's just them going shopping. One of the lines was like, "I wonder what I'm gonna get today." It's just like this really cute, weird thing.
And like Little Tales, where it's like
Little Tales will have artist collaborations.
Yeah, so it's a different art style with Pikachu wearing like a top hat and a bow tie. They just do really special edition stuff like that. That doesn't really come over here.
No, definitely.
It's really cool how they handle them. They're always like such good quality too, and you'll see some of that. Now, thankfully, with PokemonCenter.com, they have a lot of really good products. Like they have the little Katari, these little sleepy guys, sleeping ones.
Oh, nice. The ones you have on the mics.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is cool. So they handle everything really well.
Yeah. I also think they're really smart. Just as a final point, I guess, for this, I think Pokemon Company and the developer, Game Freak and Creatures and all the folks involved are just really smart about when they pull the trigger for a new Pokemon game and where it's going to be. I know this morning I saw some disappointment that, why isn't this on NX? And like, if history has taught us anything, Pokemon will go for an install base. I mean, from its inception, they went for it on the Game Boy hardware, which at the time we said at the start, had been very long in the tooth in terms of how many years it had been available. And it sort of rejuvenated and picked up sales for that.
Right.
And, 3DS's install base isn't near where DS was. Like DS made it to the 100 million mark unit sales in terms of hardware. 3DS is closer to 50 plus million units. But if you're the Pokemon Company and if you're trying to make the biggest splash possible, you're going to do that. You can't say any move type, by the way, on the podcast.
You already said Sucker Punch, by the way.
Yeah, I did. But you can't. You're going to make the biggest splash on the hardware base that's basically already there, and so they're going for 3DS.
It's what they did with Black and White. People were expecting that to be, the next gen console or on 3DS, but nope. That was on DS.
Also, I want to point out that it is Pocket Monsters, so making it a console thing is just a little asynchronous. They did have Pokemon Stadium, but it wasn't a mainline thing. It was actually compatible with the handheld games. Same with Coliseum and XD and stuff like that.
Battle Revolution.
They always keep it connected to the handheld. So I don't know if they would completely depart from it for a new generation. Like I don't.
Well, and we don't know what NX is.
Yeah,
like,
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, like that's the biggest reason. So I saw some disappointment over that this morning. I'm just like, I don't know if you understand who they're going for and who they're selling to. Yeah,
I'd be disappointed to see. I mean, it may be a weird one, but like a core Pokemon game like that on a console, because it's just not ideal how you play Pokemon.
I don't
unless
want
this NX thing ends up being the home handheld hybrid. That's a tongue twister device that you are going to take with you and then plug into something when you get home. It doesn't make sense yet for this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thing with Animal Crossing, like a game that is designed for the way handheld users play just doesn't. I mean, like, so when Animal Crossing went to DS, it was so improved. And then when they went back to Wii, I was like, this doesn't work for my playstyle anymore.
Yeah, I played it like far less.
I played City Folk like not at all, and I'm obsessed with Animal Crossing. And so it's sort of the same thing for Pokemon with me, where it's like my style is I get on the train on my way home from work, I hatch a couple eggs, none of them work, I release all the Pokemon, and then I'm like, all right, I'll try again tomorrow. And like I play in increments that way because breeding is sort of a grind, and you kind of need to break it up.
Well, it's better as a game you can take with you.
Yeah, it doesn't. Having it on console wouldn't fit my play style. Maybe, you know, Pokemon Stadium as a kid, like I'll have people come over and we would play like the mini games and stuff, but it's for a mainline game, it just doesn't fit the anybody's play style.
All right. So we'll see. I'm willing to bet this is the Black Friday, sort of the week before Black Friday game. Like it sort of has to be. I think it's going to do great for 3DS this holiday, because this past holiday was pretty much a rough year for them.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move over to our last topic today. And it's funny that you brought up Animal Crossing, and especially like sort of, we've talked about this with Pokemon, but both series in a lot of ways are series that are somewhat resistant to change. There's a certain formula and there's a certain way that both unfold, but let's focus on Pokemon here. Where are places where the next Pokemon kind of needs to improve, the next Pokemon game needs to kind of take that step forward, call it an evolution, call it whatever you want. Like it is a new gen. So like what's that wish list look like? Like what do you guys want?
We are working on a feature for this to go on IGN.com that you should be looking for.
Wow. Cool website.
Wow, it's really cool. You should check it out.
All right.
I'll let Mondo. I just wanted to point that out before we started. Yeah,
of course. At the tippy top of my list, I would love to see different typings as starter Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know, fire, grass, water types. I love them, but seen them every game so far. I would love for them to switch it up, and I know that's difficult considering the whole like rock paper scissors dynamic that each one of them has. So I think the only typing combination that would work in a similar way would be psychic, dark, and fighting types.
That would be
so
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Or it'd be cool if it was like in a wave, right? Like it would be like if you want to start with this set, here are your 3 choices. If you want to start with this set, here are those 3 choices. So you're
it'd be
able to
interesting
choose.
if Sun and Moon had something similar to that, because you know
Yeah.
if you go with that set, it's kind of like a darker set.
Exactly.
Like Moon.
Yeah, that would be so cool, especially because psychic and fighting, especially. I really like dark Pokemon, but I think those are sort of underused types. And I don't know. It would be really cool to see a deviation from that formula that still teaches type matchups, because I think that's an important aspect of beginning a Pokemon game.
Well, I think it gets overlooked too because it shows up so late in the campaign or so much later in the game itself, right? Like I think I see what they're going for, sort of just to teach you the rock paper scissors element, which I think is a great thing to point out, but maybe take for granted that there are different ways to teach that and not just rely on the most basic sort of combination.
Right.
All right, what else you guys got? What else is on this wish list? I have something, which is that I want story to get better. I feel like X and Y, which was the last new gen, that was the one place I felt disappointed most. Yes, there were nods to, you know, the kid, what's the kid with the shorts? Joey, that everyone loves. Like there are these loving references to Pokemon and that Pokemon fans will pick up.
Yeah.
But
in
I felt
X
that
they had an over 9,000 joke too.
Yes, they did. Yeah. But I felt like in terms of entertainment that scales really well for an audience that is kids to adult, which we've seen examples of that. Look at like Inside Out is a great example of that, right?
Yeah.
That is a movie that I think it was a Pixar film that you know, the jokes hit for the kids and the jokes hit really well for the adults. The Muppet Show used to be a great example of that too. Jokes hit for kids, jokes hit for adults.
Right.
I feel like Pokemon, especially in X and Y, felt like it was more kid-friendly than ever.
Totally.
And I'm not asking for something dark or something, you know, uncomfortable. Like I understand the limitations of the audience you want to speak to, but at the same time, I do think that you need to take into account that there's a bigger audience here.
And we can still tell a kid-friendly story without talking down to your audience.
Exactly.
I mean, if you look at like Steven Universe and stuff like that, it does that really well and executes it. And I think that is something we definitely need, because some of these stories get a little tiring.
They do. And it's not like Pokemon doesn't have its dark aspects. I mean, you look at Cubone and the fact that every Cubone wears its mother's skull.
Or that Slowpoke tails are sought after by poachers.
Just go read the Pokedex entries.
Yeah, like there's tons of ghost Pokemon that have really creepy entries. And Drifloon.
Stealing your kids.
Yamask is you look up Yamask right now, it's so creepy.
Yeah.
So it's not like that's uncharted territory. Like they could explore that a little bit without getting depressing and awful and alienating, especially like the younger audience. So it'd be cool to see them maybe break away from the "you did it, trainer, congratulations."
because it feels like going through the motions at this point. I did like that in X and Y there were different kids with different specialities for like different focuses for the Pokemon. You had one who was trying to catch them, one who thought they were adorable, one who wanted to teach them to dance.
Yeah.
And even though that's not a typical aspiration for a Pokemon
that.
master, it was still something that I thought was cool. So on that front, I think you did it right. But on the rest, I mean, the rest of the campaign just sort of felt by the numbers.
Do you ever wonder, like, why can't, if the Elite Four is so great, why can't they help?
Yeah, right?
Why isn't the Elite Four doing this?
Yeah.
I'm just 10. I am 10 years old. There's also some interesting theories about the Pokemon world that I think would be fun to play off of. Like, there was this theory floating around for especially the first 2 generations. Like, where are the men? Where are all of the 30 to 40-year-old men? Where is your dad? Where are the dads?
Well,
and there was this theory that there was this like Poke-apocalypse, and there was this war started over Pokemon, and all the men died.
Wow.
Well, I heard that they were all just drafted into the Navy, into the Army, because then you got Lieutenant Surge and almost
drafted.
everyone on the SS, the SSN in Gen 1.
They're all drafted.
So
there was this Poke War. So
and that's just one of the ways this game shows its Japanese design, right? Because like it's just like with Earthbound, right? Dad's never home because dad's at work. And a lot of RPGs, there are absent father figures, and Pokemon has definitely been one of them. Outside of Professor Oak or whichever professor they decided to put who's a male, you don't meet many males.
Or Norman in Gen 3.
Yeah, that's right. And that was a really direct relationship because that was your pops.
It was like, that's your actual dad. Now fight him.
Replace him.
My goal is
Take your place by my side.
To fight my dad. Let's go,
together
Dad.
we will rule the galaxy.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, some other areas for change. Where else are you guys looking for, like, something to change in Sun and Moon?
Time. I want the time to be different. Like that's what I had on earlier. It's just like it's still just in the same technological space, and it'd be kind of cool to see a little bit more futuristic, or even less so. Like it'd be kind of cool just to see how the world changes with that. And I think it would give you more opportunities for different storylines.
Yeah.
Got it. So she wants to be in the future. All right.
Yeah. I brought this up a little bit earlier with Pokemon Bank. So they did release an official statement about how that works, and transferring from the Virtual Console Red, Blue, Yellow to Pokemon Bank, it's only compatible with Sun and Moon. It won't be compatible with X, Y, or Omega Ruby, Alpha, Sapphire.
Interesting.
Which makes me think that they're sort of tweaking the engine or making something in Sun and Moon to be able to fix the stat problems, because sometimes people don't remember this, but in first gen there was no special attack, special defense. It was just special.
Into one,
which, in order to transfer those Pokemon forward, they would need to be randomly generated. Stats, also natures and abilities.
And
genders, stuff like that. So there's a lot that has to be translated, essentially, when you bring a Pokemon forward in time, forward in generation. So that's interesting. I'm wondering what about Sun and Moon is going to be able to fix that. Are they tweaking something? Are they changing something about the back end? So it does look like there is change happening behind the scenes, at least. So even if we don't get story changes or something like that, there's going to be something fresh about these.
Totally.
Yeah, and Pokemon Bank is proving to be something that, if anything, is going to help make the transitions between gens easier. Because prior to that thing, it was a spreadsheet of different techniques and things you had to do.
Pal Park and
in order to move something forward. And I, for example, like I actually have my Pokemon Bank with all the Pokemon I caught from X and Y, and I didn't really make it through Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but due to this excitement, I will. I think that's going to be my next my next thing to
play the Delta episode. It's so worth it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, so my roommate pointed this out to me, but it is kind of a bummer though to see like certain like very exclusive Pokemon, especially in that game, are all of a sudden just gifts. They're just like, oh, here you go. Here's oh my God, who the one that
Latios?
Well, Latios and Latias specifically. Yeah. Where they're just like, here you go, and you're like, wait a minute, this is not how this was. Like this is not how this should be. This shouldn't be this easy. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you can argue that it's kind of, they've always done that. In Pokemon Yellow, you're handed Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle.
Or Pikachu in that one specifically. Oh, here you go. You can have them now.
It's different. Like in Gen 2, like catching the legendary dogs is really hard because they run away immediately.
Right.
You have to like specifically, the strategy is a false swipe or putting them to sleep kind of thing, and you have to work around that. And you did that with Latias and Latios originally as well. And then when they just hand it to you, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
guess I don't have to do any of that. But
Yeah.
then they added like the Eon Flute and being able to explore from Mirage spots. So they kind of balanced it. Like the Mirage spots, you have to work really hard to catch certain Pokemon.
Totally.
Yeah.
And also the other consideration is, again, for competitive play, you have to do a lot of RNG manipulation for the correct stats on legendaries, because they added legendaries to the competitive.
You're
my
shaking
head.
your
Shaking
head.
heads.
Dude,
Yeah,
just
it's
shake
like,
your
I
head.
thank
Let it
you.
out.
I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally ruining the metagame.
Agree.
You can have a Mega, a Primal Groudon, and another Legendary. It's trash. Don't
It's
do
totally
it.
legal.
It's
And
totally
yeah.
illegal. They shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have done it. Anyway, but because of that, the ability to get these legendaries and know where they're going to be and being able to soft reset is kind of helpful in that regard. I wish it wasn't almost. So I sort of understand the thinking behind making it a little more accessible.
Sure.
What? One more. Sorry, were you?
I'm done.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
still mad. I'm over here.
She's fuming.
I'm fuming
If
about-
you're listening only, there's smoke coming out of Callie's head at the moment.
Maybe
Yeah.
this will fuel the fire. But one thing that I absolutely want in the next gen, and I have strong hopes that it's going to happen in Gen 7, more evolutions.
Yes.
Always more though. Everybody loves them so much,
Dude.
and a lot of their campaigns, especially in Japan, have evolution stuff. So I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah.
They have a whole evolution. They had a whole like line, like we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, like Pokemon Market and stuff. They had a whole evolution line.
So for the let's say the casual Poke listener, you need to tell them what evolutions is. Go for it.
It's
Quickly.
so Eevee can evolve into a number of different types, and it's these branching evolutions. So in the first gen there were 3. They added 2 in second, and then they kept adding, and so now we're up to 8. But there's lots of types, obviously, that are overlooked. I'm hoping for a scrappy fighting type Eevee.
I want my Dragon Eevee, please.
Dragon Eevee. I want Ghost Eevee, but I think that's really dark because that's implying that you like killed your
borderline
original Eevee.
yokai
Yeah, what
watch right
happens?
there.
Like, do you have to
Borderline
involve it?
Yabanyan? Is that what his
Yeah.
name is?
Jibanyan.
Jibanyan, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so evolutions are fun because the whole point of them is choice. You get to choose, this Pokemon gets to turn into anything I want, and a lot of them are actually really useful and super strong Pokemon, especially Sylveon's the most recent addition, and Sylveon's awesome. That's the fairy type one. So.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I love them, and that's my favorite Pokemon thing to collect first. Like, I don't go for all Pokemon first; I go for my evolutions. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, gotta get these first.
I'm in the middle of training my Sylveon right now, and it's like perfectly bred, and it's perfect, and I love it so much, and I love Eevee. It's my favorite Pokemon.
All right, nice. So this whole Pokemon Bank thing also makes me wonder, just in terms of generations, prior generations, will Gen 1 or will most of Gen 1 not be catchable in that game standalone? And is that something that you're going to need Pokemon, the originals, the Virtual Console releases for? I don't know if Pokemon Company would be that nefarious, but I wouldn't put it past just to kind of balance that out or make that
Well,
a
if we
thing.
look at the trailer, there's the screenshot. I think it's concept art of that water building
With Horsey.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a Horsey statue, and
So there'll be some, but maybe not all.
Yeah.
But who
But
knows?
also, if they keep the global trade system, which I imagine they would,
Oh,
because
absolutely, they
that's,
better.
I
Yeah.
love the global trade
Such a good idea.
system. I love Wonder Trade. If they keep that, it's pretty easy to get what you need, even if it's not available in the game. Even if you don't have Pokemon Bank, it's pretty easy to to be like, hey, I have this Ditto. Do you want to give me a Nidoran? Not that that's an equal trade at all.
I might be alone, but I don't know how you guys feel. But Heart Gold, Soul Silver, best Pokemon game ever. And what made it so great?
Agree.
Post game, you could go back to Kanto, which is Generation 1
Yeah.
region, and catch a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon, battle those gym leaders,
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
That was the best surprise of that game.
Yeah.
And
it was all thanks to Iwata, by the way. I
Yeah.
just want to say.
Yeah.
And
He will be remembered.
I wanted to
Yeah.
point out to this line that Ishihara says in the Pokemon Direct this morning is that it all comes together in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and don't want to speculate too hard, but I'm really hoping for multi-regions in this next Pokemon game.
That'd be really cool.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
I'd die.
For my last piece on this wish list, I thought one of the coolest things about X and Y was discovering, because I mean it was a global release, first time they'd ever done that in the Pokemon series. Usually it came out in Japan first and then everyone else would get it. I hope I say his name right, but Vivillon. The butterfly.
Vivillon.
Vivillon. I love the discovery that each region had its own pattern.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And that it didn't last forever, right? Like the whole mystique around it, but it was still so cool to find out America had its own version, Japan had its own version, and people were trading them, and it almost became this sort of self-contained metagame to get them all, even though you weren't going to use them for battle purposes. It was more just the collection
and it's
aspect.
not even a new Pokedex entry. It's just you want to have each pattern. And someone calculated how long, by the way, Spinda has different spots. Like there's a bunch of different combinations, and it would take you years to get every Spinda if you were constantly catching Spinda.
That's right.
So like there's people who do stuff like that even though there's no in-game reward for it, it's like, look, I have every VV on. Even the French exclusive one that everybody was mad about because it was only in France. Stuff like that.
No, it was definitely a cool surprise and something that I will say with this next game I'm looking forward to.
Totally.
All right,
definitely
we've got
welcome inclusion for sure.
Yeah. So we've got to end here. Thank you so much for listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. I hope if you're watching the video, you enjoy this beautiful set dressing. This is all Callie and Miranda. Armando, did you contribute anything?
I did,
okay,
indeed.
as well. I have none of these toys, so I think this is pretty awesome. Lastly, you can support the show by emailing us at nvc@ign.com. Let us know what your Pokemon wish list is for Sun and Moon. Or you can also leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you think of the show. Lastly, you can find us all on Twitter. You can find Miranda Sanchez at
Havoc Rose, and it's Havoc with a K.
Okay. You can find Callie Plaguey at
Inkydojiko, INKYDOJIKKO.
all right. And you can find Armando at
_ Mondo Taurus.
all right. And you can find myself, Jose_Otero. Thank you so much for listening, and happy Pokemon 20th anniversary. We'll be back next week.